Hi, Gary. Thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks so very much for having me. I'm Gary Simonds. By training, I'm a neurosurgeon. I practiced for several decades in neurosurgery, but put the scalpel down a few years ago, and continue to teach undergrads and medical students, and have been trying to do a fair amount of writing.
Love that. I would love if you could tell us what your book's about.
Well, I have a novel out that is, of all things, about a neurosurgeon. It's about a neurosurgeon who's, I think, pretty clearly overworked, probably a workaholic, probably burned out to one degree or another. But he begins to see things that he knows aren't there, and he originally believes that maybe these are hallucinations. He's pretty sleep deprived. And of course, he lives in a world of brain disorders. So he worries that this could be a brain disorder. But he gets checked out, and really nothing is turning up. But he continues to see things that he shouldn't be seeing, and begins to convince himself that these are ghosts. And the sightings escalate, and this kind of starts to encroach and deteriorate his home life and his work life, and that's what the book's about.
Love that. What inspired you to write your book?
Well, the, for a long time, I think I lived in a world that I think very few people experience, thankfully. But I think it's in some ways kind of mysterious to a lot of people what goes on, behind the operating room doors, and in the big ICUs in these big medical centers. And I've always wanted to kind of give a glimpse into that world, into that life, on all fronts, on the people who are caring for the patients, but also what the patients and their families are going through, because it is pretty high drama, if you will. There's just no way to get around it. It's very much life and death, and a lot of humanity that goes through those doors. So I always wanted to put that to paper, and really began writing a nonfiction account of it. And it felt too much like a book report, felt kind of boring to me. So I decided I really wanted to shift gears, and through fiction, hopefully put the readers right there in the operating room, right there, as a brain is bleeding, and you're having to deal with it, and talking to families who are losing loved ones and facing tragedy and that sort of thing. So I thought fiction might work much better for that, and that's kind of how I came around to that.
Amazing. When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Yeah, I think I was thinking for basically almost anyone. The tragedies, the things that happen to the people in the books. I mean, it happens to all ages and all cross sections of humanity. There are certain diseases and problems that obviously are going to strike people older in age to one degree or another. But in my world, there were plenty of people getting horrible injuries and car accidents, and all sorts of human endeavors. So, I mean, we saw all ages, all types of people, all the time. And so I think I really just wanted to appeal to anyone. Certainly, I think those who enjoy paranormal yarns will enjoy it. I'm hoping it's kind of the type of book somebody who likes a psychological thriller would like to read as well. But I think it could reach a lot of different types of readers.
Amazing. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
Well, and in medicine, you end up writing a lot all the time, really from day one, because you're always having to record what you're doing. and what you're thinking with all your patients. So you're actually nonstop writing. And then, in that world too, you're always writing science papers and all sorts of other things. So you end up you end up putting a lot of words to paper, or nowadays to computer, I guess. But I started then getting involved and very interested in the world of burnout and trying to prevent burnout and build resilience in people. I don't know, maybe 15 plus years ago. And through our work on it, ended up writing three different books on the subject. So I guess I got into the real formal writing in that manner. But when I shifted to fiction, I really hadn't done it much prior to this, and so I ran out and bought a whole bunch of how-to books and tried to figure it out from them. So it was very much a learning experience.
Love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Uh, you might have to ask my wife on that one because I tend to lose track real fast. So I'll sit down and say to myself, "Oh, you're going to write. You got an hour or so where you can get some writing done." And next thing I know, I look up and it's 6 hours later. So I tend to dissolve into the writing and lose all track of time. Um, I I think I do better in the mornings, but I have to kind of shake off the cobwebs then. And then I'm a bit of an insomniac. I think probably from my years of having to be up all night every few nights in neurosurgery. So sometimes I'll do a fair amount of writing right in the middle of the night as well.
Amazing. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
I Interestingly, it's yeah, obviously you don't want a million distractions or anything, but I seem to do better if my wife is around and doing her thing, no matter what that might be. Except except if she like I often write in our we just live in a small cabin, but I often write in our kitchen. And if she's bustling around the kitchen, that's a great setting. Oddly, if she sits down on the computer and starts typing, that's for one reason or the other sets me off, and I can't function. But otherwise, there's a fair amount going on around me usually when I'm writing. So I'm not one who needs kind of the a library cloister or something to be able to do it.
Amazing. What is your favorite writing snack and drink?
Oh my gosh. Again, I kind of I kind of lose track, so I forget to eat and drink. So maybe the favorite one would be water, just to remind myself to hydrate. And I don't I don't really snack while I'm writing. I just kind of get lost in it. So before I load up on some eggs so I'm not hungry and then go from there.
Amazing. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Pretty broad spectrum. I end up gravitating to a lot of nonfiction and history, but I do get caught up often in these like a detective novel, particularly the British detective novels, like Colin Dexter with Inspector Morse. Has several wonderful books there, and then there's these Lovejoy mysteries by Jonathan Gash, which I also love. Um, but I can read a whole bunch of different genres.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
I think all of them. I mean, I think I've always when you read somebody who does it well, it's like watching I don't know, it's like watching a great tennis player or basketball player or something like that, or a great musician, where you're just kind of like, gosh, I wish I could do, a tenth of what they're able to do. and get out there and at least give it a try and see how you do. So there, so many are pretty inspirational. There's a few books that I've read that have particularly stood out. There's a book from way back, several decades ago, I think, called The Last Convertible, and Anton Meyer is the author's name, and it is so beautifully written, so evocative of a time. And it's the pre-World War II time through much of the book. Um, but it almost feels like poetry. It's so beautifully written. So you read something like that, and you just go, gosh, if I could even come close, I don't even have to be in the same ballpark, but if I could just, in any way resemble that type of writing, it would be amazing. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely ones out there that really catch me, but I'm pretty enamored with most that can get a book out and have it be readable.
Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Um, I am a insanely slow reader. And as a kid, I mean, was particularly a slow reader. So I spent most of my time in books, literally looking through the encyclopedia and just reading small articles in the encyclopedia. Probably the books I read the most as a kid were just Peanuts cartoons. But I think my favorite book of all time came from my, early adulthood, and that was The Cane Mutiny by Herman Wouk. And again, I think it's so, wonderfully constructed and so evocative of his scenes. There's a scene in that book where a naval destroyer is in a typhoon. It gets caught in a typhoon in the Pacific, and I mean, you can feel the boat rolling under your feet. I mean, it just so puts you right there. So I've read that book at least half a dozen times.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors if they come out with something you automatically grab it?
I got to be honest with you. I don't necessarily go that way. It's definitely much more random. I depend much more. I depend a lot on choices from my wife because she reads voraciously and saws through books like there's no tomorrow. So, if she picks out one, I'll usually give that a try. But I can't say that there are series that I particularly jump into. As I said, there's all these, I guess, these detective series that can catch me. And I've read through several, like I said, of Lovejoy and of Morse, and then there's an Inspector Rebus and Enbro. They all seem to be British mysteries that I go to.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Oh, one of the better advices I've heard on that, because I was a slave to it, was if the book's not speaking to you after a while, it's okay to not finish it. I always felt like I had to finish every book I started, and sometimes the book wasn't speaking to me, so I would just kind of slavishly work my way through it, and kind of burn time when other books that I really enjoyed I would have had more time for. So I think the first thing to do is, make sure you're really enjoying it and don't feel like it's an assignment from your high school teacher. Because if you do that, it's like exercise. If you enjoy what you're doing and you're exercising, you can do it forever. If you're hating it, you're just going to give up on it. And I think, reading's so important and so should be so much a part of all our lives that I think you got to find a way. You got to find what speaks to you and get into that rather than feel like it's mandatory and I must do it and I have a report to do on it at the end of the week. And I think enjoy it. Find a way and find the books that you really enjoy.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
I'm not sure I'm in a position to give all that much advice, but I would say um, absolutely uh, get as many people as you can to read it at multiple stages, um, and be really open to advice. Don't be defensive. Recognize that we're not going to be Hemingway on our first journeys out, maybe even our 30th journeys out. So be brave enough to let a lot of people read through it because it's amazing the input you can get, both from amateurs and professionals. I mean, I think, I was lucky enough to go seek out some editors who gave just tremendous advice, and I think, particularly if we're just starting out, we're very much in a learning curve there. So I think that's the big one is make sure a lot of people put their eyes on it. You don't have to follow everybody's advice, but you'll hear great advice, and it will get better and better the more you work on it.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Um, maybe that I'm a regular guy. I think when they hear neurosurgeon, they immediately assume, I don't know, some person with their nose in the air and thinking they're better than everybody else on earth and believing that they're always the smartest person in the room. And I have certainly received comments through the years that, geez, you just seem like a normal person. So I think it's a it feels like a great compliment to me. I don't know if it's delivered that way.
Amazing. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Yeah, I mean, I think with my book Death's Pale Flag, I really want um, as many people as possible to read it and give me feedback on it. In that I do think it holds a lot of interesting concepts to play with and to think about. I really, above all else, I hope that there's a respect for patients and their families coming through the book and what they go through. And throughout my professional life, I just saw so much bravery, uh, courage, humanity, and I always use the term grace in the people afflicted with these terrible injuries and diseases. And I really hope that comes through the book. And I really hope people stop and recognize just how easily life can turn and how quickly and easily they could be thrust into that position as well, and just kind of appreciate more what they have, appreciate the life that they have, and make the most of it.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, the book is everywhere, I guess. Well, not everywhere, but every the main thoroughfares online. You can get it at all the major book outlets online, both the big ones and the independent bookstore consortiums as well. It's in all formats. It's in print. It's um, on a whatever you call it, e-reader, and there's also an audiobook version, which I actually really thought the reader did a great job. So it's out there in multiple formats and pretty easily available. I love it when people get me feedback, and if they ever want to discuss points or ideas that are in the book or yell at me for some of the things that happen. I've had that happen as well. So I'm easily contacted through a website of my own, which is my name, Gary R. Simonds. It's actually Simmons, but it's spelled Simons. So it's Gary R. Simonds.com. So it's pretty easy. And they can easily get in touch with me through the website.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Oh, it's truly my delight. Thank you.